Impression making with the DENTCA system. We will now review how to make an accurate upper and lower impression following the DENTCA protocol. When you examine the DENTCA trays, you will notice finger rests on the upper and lower tray. You will utilize these to stabilize the tray while you seat your tray and border mold your upper and lower impressions. You will also notice a flat striking plate on the center of the upper tray, which will be used in recording the centric relation and vertical dimension of occlusion. You may also notice that the DENTCA trays have no handle. Some reports have found that handles can actually get in the way of accurate border molding if not correctly positioned. DENTCA eliminates that risk. Once you go through the process once or twice, the border molding becomes very comfortable without a handle and you won't even notice it is missing. With DENTCA impressions, heavy and light body polyvinyl siloxane are used for your impressions. You first impress with a heavy body, which creates a sort of custom tray and allows the light body in the second phase to capture the fine detail of the patient's soft tissue anatomy. Border molding is completed during both impression phases with a light body and the heavy body PVS. You will notice that we start the impression without tray adhesive. Due to the mechanical retention of the tray adhesive is not necessary. In your appropriately sized upper tray, completely fill the tray with an even layer of heavy viscosity polyvinyl with careful attention to cover all borders as well as the palatal area. Utilizing the finger rests, fully seat the tray into the patient's mouth. You should feel some resistance due to the heavy viscosity of your impression material. You will now proceed with border molding movements. Throughout your border molding, it's important to maintain consistent pressure on the finger rests as you go through the movements, and that will stabilize your tray. You can use whichever two fingers or whichever combination of fingers you typically use for stabilizing your tray during border molding. I will use my first two fingers. As you go through the border molding movements, you'll want to be exaggerated when pulling the patient's lip and cheek out to capture the frena and vestibular borders. Since DENTCA impressions are so accurately captured digitally, this helps prevent overextension. Have the patient open and close and move their jaw side to side to record any impingement of the condyle or masticatory muscles, particularly in the tuberosity area. You may choose to have the patient pucker and smile wide to avoid interference from the muscles of facial expression. And on the maxillary arch, many practitioners elect to have the patient cough or utilize the Valsalva technique to capture the movement of the soft palate. Once you remove your tray, you will want to evaluate your impression to identify any areas where the tray is showing through. If the tray is impinging on the soft tissues, as it is in these areas, it will cause a high spot in the final denture. Relieve these areas with an acrylic burr, such as an E-cutter or a pear-shaped burr on a straight sleeve, slow-speed handpiece. These areas will be filled with light-bodied PVS, so don't worry too much about over-reducing. Under-reducing is actually more of a concern, as there may still be tray impingement after your second impression. You will now completely cover your heavy-body polyvinyl siloxane material with a light or extra light viscosity PVS wash material, including all the borders. Reseat the impression into the same position as the impression was before. This will require some pressure, as you'll want to feel the impression re-engage the soft tissues. Stabilize your tray with the finger rests and repeat all border molding movements from the previous heavy body impression. When you examine the impression on the right-hand side of the screen, the tray was not seated straight when we did our heavy body wash, so the borders are not complete on one side and they're very thick on the other side. It is best to remake this impression, as continuing on with this will result in a denture that has uneven borders. The denture will match the final impression and have thick borders on one side and thin borders on the other side. We decided to recapture our impression, and you can see the impression on the left has a more even border. You will now repeat these same impression steps on the lower arch, the same as we did on the upper. When we border mold the lower, we want to make sure that the patient fully extends his tongue and moves it from side to side to capture the lingual borders of the denture. Note that you do not need to apply any tray adhesive between the heavy and light viscosity layers, and that the layer of light viscosity is slightly thinner than the layer of heavy body. If you feel comfortable border molding, you can use fast set polyvinyl siloxane. You will have about 1.5 minutes to complete all your border molding movements if you use this material. If you prefer, you can use a regular set impression material, which roughly doubles your working time depending on the brand. You will now carefully review your impression for accuracy and landmarks. First, check for your frena. In addition to your labial frenum, you want to make sure you've captured any buccal frenum along the sides of your denture. The frena, along with the border extensions, are captured by fully seating your tray and border molding the lips and cheeks aggressively as previously described. You'll also want to see your hamular notches in your final impression. Ideally, you'll see the tendon pulling through on the back, as that will help maintain suction on your upper denture. Finally, you'll want to capture the post-palatal area on your final impression, as that will be where your post-stem will go across from one side to the other. This is what creates your retention of your maxillary denture. On the mandible, you may have both a labial and a lingual frenum, or you may only have the labial frenum. You'll want to make sure that both of these are captured accurately in your final impression. You'll also want to check for border extensions. As with the upper, the border extensions and the frena are captured through your border molding. Next, you'll look for the buccal shelf area, which is a large wide area on your impression towards the cheek side. This is the primary denture-bearing area in the mandibular arch, and so it's critical that this is accurately captured. Finally, you'll want to make sure you've captured the pear-shaped pad or the retromolar pad. This is an important landmark, as it will help in designing the final occlusion of your denture, as well as its coverage will help create somewhat of a border seal. Once you are happy with the quality and accuracy of your final impressions, you are ready to proceed with your interocclusal records.